Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Wisconsin, a jury found white gunman Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all counts. In August of last year, Rittenhouse traveled to Kenosha, Wisconsin during anti-police brutality protests where he shot and killed 2 people and wounded a third. Friday's verdict sparked demonstrations across the country. In a statement, the parents of Anthony Huber, one of the protesters killed by Rittenhouse, said they were heartbroken and angry and that the verdict, quote, sends the unacceptable message that armed civilians can show up in any town, incite violence, then use the danger they've created to justify shooting people in the street. This is Hannah Giddings, the partner of Anthony Huber.
Every day I wish that I could come home to him and unload some of this weight that's on my shoulders, but I can't because he's dead. And now the system is telling me that nobody needs to answer for that. And I have a problem with that. I think I've been very open in expressing my empathy for the other side of this, but that's just not reciprocated back.
Anthony Huber's partner, Hannah Giddings, was standing next to Justin Blake, the uncle of Jacob Blake, who was shot by police that sparked the protests against police brutality. We'll be speaking with Justin Blake and Jacob Blake's father, Jacob Blake, in a Democracy Now! Exclusive after headlines. 2 other closely watched trials continue today. In Georgia, closing arguments are being delivered in the murder trial of the 3 white men who chased down and fatally shot Ahmaud Arbery. And jurors in Charlottesville, Virginia, are deliberating for a second day in the civil trial against the organizers of the deadly Unite the Right rally. A New York man who pleaded guilty to the sexual assault of 4 teenage girls will avoid prison altogether after receiving an extraordinarily lenient sentence that's drawn international condemnation. Christopher Belter, who's now 20 years old, received 8 months probation and no jail time after he pleaded guilty to attempted first-degree sexual abuse, third-degree rape, and 2 counts of second-degree sexual abuse. One survivor was in the courtroom, told Buffalo news station WKBW she had to immediately run to the bathroom and throw up after Belter's sentencing Tuesday.
I lost it. I mean, I didn't expect to be as emotional as I was, but I just broke down. I was shaking with anger. I was disgusted at the fact that this was even an option.
The 4 teens who were raped were 15 and 16 years old. Belter, who is white, is from a wealthy neighborhood near Niagara Falls, New York. In Missouri, a white Kansas City police detective was found guilty Friday of fatally shooting a black man outside his own home in December 2019. Eric DeValkenaer was convicted on charges of second-degree involuntary manslaughter and armed criminal action for firing 2 rounds at 26-year-old Cameron Lamb, who was killed as he backed his truck into his own garage. At the time, officers had no arrest warrant and no evidence of a crime. Civil rights attorney Lee Merritt represents Lamb's family.
This is momentous. This is historic, and it means something. This is going to mean something when you go back to Georgia. It's going to mean something for Ahmaud Arbery. It's going to mean something for Tatiana Jefferson. It's going to mean something for both of Jean. It's going to mean something for so many families that have been impacted. Jamel Roberson in Chicago, Ronald Green in Illinois. These instances of justice in our system are far too rare.
We'll have more on that story later in the broadcast. In Wisconsin, an SUV plowed through a Christmas parade in the town of Waukesha Sunday, killing at least 5 people and injuring at least another 40. Videos show the vehicle crashing through barriers and speeding down a road that had been blocked off for the parade. Police say they've detained a, quote, person of interest, but no cause or motive for the deadly incident has been revealed. Major protests against COVID restrictions took place over the weekend across Europe, where the coronavirus is once again surging. In Belgium, police deployed tear gas and water cannons as tens of thousands of people marched in the capital, Brussels, some of them throwing fireworks. In the Netherlands, police used batons, dogs, and horses to push back crowds in The Hague amidst 3 nights of rioting there and in other Dutch cities. Dozens were arrested in Rotterdam. In Austria, people rallied ahead of a full national lockdown starting today.
I want my freedom back. One would think we live in a democracy, but now this is a coronavirus dictatorship.
Protests also took place in Croatia, Italy, and outside of Europe, most notably in Australia. Here in the United States, the FDA and the CDC approved COVID-19 booster shots for all adults Friday. Health officials are urging U.S. residents to get a booster or to get their first vaccines if they haven't already in order to curb another winter surge as the holiday travel rush is expected to approach pre-pandemic levels. Cases have gone up nearly 30% over the last 2 weeks. Recorded U.S. COVID deaths in 2021 have now surpassed 2020 deaths despite the wide availability of vaccines. In Sudan, security forces shot dead a 16-year-old during anti-coup protests Sunday. The latest demonstration came as Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok was reinstated by the military coup government 1 month after they ousted him. Hamdok signed a power-sharing deal with the military that would last 3 to 4 years before new elections are held. This is a protester speaking yesterday from the capital, Khartoum.
Prime Minister Hamdok is in a position of weakness and isn't able to speak up about people's demands because he is staying with the military leader Burhan in the same place. He can't tell him that he's a killer and he must be tried. But we want politicians who can bring us out of this mess, who don't want any more bloodshed. We want a civilian state without any more violence or escalation.
At least 41 people have been killed and hundreds injured in protests since the October 25th coup. In China, tennis star Peng Shuai appears to have resurfaced over the weekend amidst mounting concerns for her safety. The 35-year-old Olympian tennis player accused former Vice Premier Zhang Guoli of sexual assault in a social media post November 2nd and has not been seen since. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach said he held a video call with Peng, while Chinese state media released a series of photos and videos showing the athlete in various settings, including a children's tennis competition. In a statement, the head of the Women's Tennis Association said, quote, "While it is positive to see her, it remains unclear if she is free and able to make decisions and take actions on her own without coercion or external interference." International outcry is growing. China cares deeply about this because the Olympics are taking place in China within 2 months. In Chile, 2 presidential candidates, a far-right populist and a former student protest leader, will face off in a runoff election next month after neither candidate received enough votes Sunday to declare victory. With more than 90% of ballots counted, far-right presidential hopeful José Antonio Cast appeared to lead in the first round. Cast opposes abortion and marriage equality and ran a campaign on anti-immigration rhetoric. He's also an apologist for the former U.S.-backed Pinochet dictatorship. Meanwhile, Gabriel Boric is a 35-year-old former student activist who supports progressive social reforms and an overhaul of neoliberal economic policies. Venezuelans also took to the polls Sunday for regional elections, where President Nicolás Maduro's political party and its allies won by a landslide. The elections had a turnout of around 42%. Opposition parties participated for the first time in 4 years after boycotting the elections since 2018. The process Sunday was observed by dozens of international monitors, mostly from the European Union, fulfilling a demand from the opposition. It marked the first time European Union monitors traveled to Venezuela in 15 years. This comes as Venezuela continues to face a brutal economic crisis exacerbated by U.S. sanctions, and its supporters of Maduro urge international forces to stop intervening in Venezuela. In Haiti, 2 of the 17 North American missionary hostages taken in October have been released. Few other details are known, but the Christian Aid Ministry says the 2 freed members are healthy and safe. A Haitian gang claimed responsibility for the kidnapping and has threatened to kill the hostages if their ransom is not paid. In Somalia, a prominent journalist has been killed by a suicide bomber in the capital, Mogadishu. Abdiaziz Mohammed Guled was the director of Radio Mogadishu and a critic of the al-Shabaab armed group, which claimed responsibility for the attack. Several others were also wounded, including the director of Somali National Television. The International Organization for Migration says 75 migrants drowned in the Mediterranean off the coast of Libya last week as they attempted to reach Italy by boat. They were among the more than 1,300 asylum seekers the UN says have died trying to cross the central Mediterranean this year. In Greece, a court on the island of Lesbos has postponed the trial of 24 humanitarian aid workers who face sentences of up to 25 years in prison if found guilty of espionage and other charges. The volunteers were arrested for helping asylum seekers who arrived on Lesbos by boat between 2016 and 18. Human rights groups say the charges are trumped up and aimed at deterring others from helping refugees in need. This is Peter Wittenberg, one of the 25 whose trial was delayed last week.
I am disappointed that we have not been able to speak and demonstrate once and for all today that humanitarian work is not a crime. That will have to wait.
Back in the United States, the House on Friday voted 220 to 213 to approve the roughly $2 trillion social and climate package known as the Build Back Better bill. The vote came after the Congressional Budget Office released its analysis of the measure, which was demanded by conservative Democrats. The legislation includes universal pre-K, subsidized child care, expanded financial aid for college, and 4 weeks paid family and medical leave. It also designates $555 billion to help combat the climate catastrophe. On the immigration front, it would give undocumented people who came to the U.S. over 10 years ago up to 10 years of work authorization through a process known as parole. The measure now heads to the Senate. And in labor news, janitors at Denver International Airport celebrated a historic victory Saturday after reaching an agreement that includes a $4 an hour pay increase over 3 years. The announcement came just hours after hundreds of custodial workers walked off the job in protest demanding fair pay and better working conditions. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.